Hello, everybody. Um, Today again, we will be continuing with our discussion on reward management. And earlier in two sessions, we had observed what is reward management. We understood, how important it is, and we also tried to understand the strategic angle of the reward management. So, in this sessions and in the following session, we will focus on what the how actually the worth of a job is actually calculated, and how do we position each job into a particular pay structure, and a little more detail into the employee benefits and other allowances which an employee gets by virtue of associating with organizations. We have made our, we have obtained some sort of clarity as to the fact that we need to have a reward management policy from the top management. The support of the top management should always be there, and any reward policy has to be has to be implemented in the organization, and the entire implementation process should also be supporting the goal that they have to reach. All this we have covered, right? So now let's look at how exactly the process of job evaluation takes place, where we did speak about a little bit, we just mentioned about this. Job evaluation is something which you are already familiar with in job analysis chapter, where you speak a little bit about the job context, job requirements, etc. Right? And you're a little familiar about this. Let's take a little deeper look, because this needs a little more explanation, because it's more linked to identifying the worth of the job. This is what we are trying to do over here. So what does this job evaluation talk about? Job evaluation basically is of fundamental importance in reward management. Then it's a systematic process of defining the relative worth or size of jobs within an organization to establish internal relativities. And it provides a basis for designing equitable grade and pay structures. This we have already observed. It is basically concerned with how do we assess the worth of the job, the size of the job, and the value of the job, and try to structure it in the competitive market, and grade the job, and see to it that the equitable pay is associated with it. So we need to evaluate the job. So how do we go about it? These are the basic objectives or aims of it. So it is more in terms of establishing the relative value, internal relativities based on fair, sound, consistent judgments. Definitely we would like to see that there is some amount of consistency and fairness in the jobs. Then produce the information required to design and maintain equitable, defensible, grade and pay structures. So all the information that is required in order to understand and interpret the value and worth of the job should be provided through job evaluation process. That's what we mean over here. Then it should also be possible for us at the end of that information to grade the jobs within a grade structure, and thus enabling consistent decisions to be made about job grading. So these terms we will also clarify now in the due process. But here I would only say that it facilitates for grading of jobs, and it enables sound market comparisons and ensures that organizations meet equal pay for work of equal value obligations. So market rates and all, we have already touched upon that particular aspect. Then we also have another type of uh, you know evaluation process, which is we consider as non-analytical. So here, we just place the jobs into a particular classifications, and we try to look at or arrive at some sort of a conclusion. Here what we are doing is we are not taking into consideration the skill or other particular aspects or elements or factors. We'll just look at job classification. The schemes are job classification, job ranking, wage comparison, etc. So in the job classification, we'll simply classify jobs where similar kinds of works are being done. Okay, and those jobs will try to group into one category. The job ranking from the most difficult to the least difficult, we try to rank them. A group of experts will try to rank them. Or you compare in the paired comparison, you start comparing the relative difficulty of each of those jobs, etc. Some simple processes can also be adapted apart from the technical ones, which we will be looking at. In the market rate analysis, okay, to ensure that we basically try to see that we are competitive, and particularly those jobs where we have the scarcity or what do we say, unique resources which people actually possess. We will put it as we will do the market survey very thoroughly, create a benchmark or develop a sort of a benchmark, and we try to reach that and implement that in our organization. So that is where we say that job evaluation schemes can be used to determine the relativities, but by themselves they cannot price the jobs. So we can only say that at the end of it, these are more difficult jobs, these are less difficult jobs, these jobs require more skill, these jobs are more challenging, these require more responsibility, etc., etc. Right. And then we will then take into consideration the pay levels which are more subject to the market forces. So here what is happening is, like take for example a typical economic perspective. If we take the standard of living, the style of life, and the minimum wage that is required, the type of literally, how do we get into it, how do we determine how much should be the minimum wage, etc. These are the things which get into in the economic perspective. So here also we are trying to look at what is the minimum amount of skill that is required, how much responsibility does this position need, how much effort does this position require. So we try to sort of fix the pricing and basing on all these aspects. So when market comparisons are being made, so to say, right, in that case, right, we try to obtain accurate data covering base pay, bonuses, benefits which are operating in the society, and then we compare them with the size of the job, the type of the organization where the individual is, and in the process job matching can be done, right? And then we also try to see that we are having the latest information in this. Interpret the data. We also try to interpret the data in the light of organizational circumstances and needs, so to say. Then we present the data in such a way that it indicates the action that is required. So once we do the market analysis, we will try to present the data in a very structured manner, so that there's absolute clarity, as to the type of positions and the responsibilities, the skills that go with it, how much are our competitors paying, and we do this sort of comparisons and arrive at some conclusions. So we try to match the jobs with regard to job title, with regard to job level and level of responsibility, then the job descriptions and the job evaluation. These are the terms with which you are quite familiar, so I don't want to get into details about this. Then, for this, as I told you in my earlier session, the sources of information can be the published surveys, special surveys, bulletins which come about, then some sort of club surveys or advertisements which give us a lot of information on all these aspects. From this we can always collect the information, pool the information and use the information in a very, very effective manner. So once we have the information from the market surveys, what do we do? Next step is the grading of the pay structures. So now what do we mean by the grade structures and pay structures? So a grade structure will consist of a sequence of or hierarchy of grades, bands or levels into which groups of jobs that are broadly comparable are placed. Which means that one grade structure can have several grades within that and several bands within that, and and that are broadly comparable and that can be placed in that. So jobs which have jobs which are actually equal as far as effort or responsibility etc. are concerned can be grouped together. Right? Now there can be a single structure of grades or bands which is defined by their number and width, and we can also have a pay progression over there. Alternately, it can be divided into number of job or career families consisting of groups of jobs where the essential nature and purpose are similar, but the work carried out at different levels. That's what I have told you, that one structure can have a hierarchy of grades. Then the pay structure will define the different levels of pay for jobs and their relative internal value that is determined by the job evaluation. It also provides us for pay progressions in accordance with performance, competence, contribution or service. That is, the next levels with which an individual can rise depends upon the type of increased competencies and increase or enhancement of his skills, etc. Seniority, experience, etc. are all required for the person to get increased pay. That also we will specify. Then a grade structure becomes a pay structure when pay ranges, brackets, scales are attached to each grade. So each grade will have these sort of ranges, etc. We can have a narrow graded, broad graded, etc. and a job family, career family, pay, etc. etc. Okay. These are some of the diagrammatic indicators as to how a job grades can be, and the structures can actually be present. So once we get into this job grading part of it, right, once we sort of have an idea that a particular job might be falling into a category, falling into a particular structure, and accordingly that can go about it. Okay. Usually the evaluation committee, once they have this information, they try to assign the pay rates to the jobs. And the experts usually, they try to group the jobs into various levels. They assign some points, they assign some grades, sometimes ranks, etc. And the classification system also get into it, and they can also evolve with job clusters, etc. Now when if you see this, for example, if you see these sort of curves which go about, or the type of lines wherein we try to come up with sort of a wage curves wherein the relative value of a job is determined by the job evaluation methods, and we go by the current average pay rates which the organization is willing to pay, and this sort of a wage line is what is important, and a rate range also for each of these has to be developed. Right. Then usually very important aspect over here is that as we go higher into the career ladder, the job complexities also increase. It is easier to say or to identify, for example, a foreman working in a shop floor, to observe the activities performed and accordingly sort of have an idea about the skill or responsibility or effort that goes into it. But on the contrary, when we get into the managerial positions or to the executive positions and the professional jobs, etc., pricing of these jobs is a little more complex than it has been identified or envisaged. Okay, so in that case, we say that it is more based on performance, problem-solving abilities, judgmental abilities. Job complexity is also involved over there. In terms of how many people are they controlling. For example, a manager, how many teams does he have? How many people are reporting to him? That is a span of control. And for senior, let's say, for example, the general manager level, the number of functional divisions that he has to exercise his authority or control, and the direct responsibilities which get into it, etc. These factors become a little more complex, once we move higher into the career ladder. And moreover, if you see, for example, the executives, their human capital is slightly different in terms of the educational level, specializations in terms of fields of study, then the work experience that they bring with them, etc. That is one part of it. Then from the organization's point of view, the ability to pay these people, that is from the organization point of view. So they will look, that usually will be commensurate with the total profit, then the rate of return, and policies that govern by whether it's a state, whether it's a central, whether it's a private enterprise. All these factors are also get into it, right? And in that sense, again, there are differences. Even though there is a policy, central government policy is there for central government organizations, that state government organizations are governed by certain rules, policies, etc. But when it comes to the private sector, that is where there is a lot of difference in this sort of wage structures itself. So here the differences are not so much in the base salary, but in the short-term incentives, long-term incentives, and the benefits and the perks which are being offered by different sectors, and in the private sector particularly. Then this is where the differential pay structures also emerge in the process, so to say. Then all said and done, what we will say is that a particular reward strategy should be such that it will always be motivating as far as the employee is concerned. Strategically it should motivate the employee. Then there are certain other plans also, just to just to motivate these executives, these professionals, etc. So here what they do is, there is something called as a competence based pay. So here we are actually paying the employee for the skills that are being used. Okay, and which means that when an employee functions more effectively by using or optimizing all the skills which the employee is equipped with and which are relevant to the job. Okay, so when the employee functions in such a manner, then the employee needs to be suitably rewarded, and that we will call as competence related or competence based pay. where we are actually rewarding the employee for optimum implementation of his resources or skills, competencies on the job. That will actually motivate the employee to also to function. But that's one way of actually motivating the competent employees and retaining them in the organization. Then we can also have, pay for knowledge plans. It's another scheme, I will say. So here, what we say is that there are several employees are multi-skilled in the organization. Okay, several employees are multi-skilled in the organizations. So when they are multi-skilled in the organization, definitely we will like to use them in different positions by using job rotation. So when we use this job rotation, automatically the employee becomes more competent by becoming multi-skilled on the various tasks, and automatically the organization also rewards him in a better manner. Okay, so here we are, because of his increased knowledge which he gains by job rotation or learning, etc., and he is being awarded for that. In the earlier case, it was competencies which we were rewarding. In this case, the knowledge which he gains either through learning and development or through job rotation. Here also we tend to pay more to these employees. So paying the managerial cadre, executive cadre as such, is basically a challenge, I will say, for the organizations, right? Because any amount of metrics may not actually bring out the actual effort and the mental stress or the type of emotional commitment, attachment which the top management usually exhibits on the jobs, cannot be compensated in total. But these are the aspects which might be considered to some extent, so that probably to a reasonable extent we are able to satisfy the managerial and the top executive cadres on their jobs. So most of the time, the emphasis is on either allowances, benefits, and non-financial incentives, rewards, etc., which might attract the top managerial personnel rather than the monetary related aspects. So in the next session, we will examine how we can structure the incentives and other benefits so that employees can benefit over them.